At this point, we can probably copy and paste the intro that we've been doing to this show for the past 4 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay,
This is 100 Talk.
Yeah.
We're those guys. Welcome to the show. Here we go.
And we're here after another week of an up and down performance where there are some good things that we're happy about and some bad things that we're not happy about.
Some good things that we're unhappy about. Should edit that out next time.
Yeah.
Don't put that back in.
It's the same old story here for 100 Thieves, but it's not the same old podcast. Have we got a surprise for you today? Actually, it's not so much of a surprise since we've been, announcing it all day long. But
yeah,
we have, in order to properly parse everything that's happened in the last couple of weeks with this team and figure out where we stand on all these players and all these decisions being made and all these drafts and all that good stuff, we've enlisted the help of an old friend who knows way more about League of Legends than our silver analyst selves do.
It's our specialty, Cole, finding these people and convincing them to come to our show.
That's right. That's what we do. It's like, hey, can you do the show for us and make it sound intelligent? Yeah, so we've gone ahead and done that, and it's our great hope that he has come with the statistics, which I don't think I've ever said that out loud before. I've always used this hashtag statistic, and saying it out loud is actually quite difficult.
It's easier to type than say, it turns out. Yeah.
Well, in any case, let's go ahead and introduce him. So let's bring on our old friend, Tim Sevenhuysen with Esports One and Oracle's Elixir. You use his stat site all the time, and you can now use his analysis to justify your 100 Thieves takes or to completely disavow them, which might be happening at this point. So, Tim, welcome.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah.
It's been a little while, but I'm glad to be here.
I know. Coming to us from his divinely appointed office where you see the books on the shelves behind him, they're full of it's like the Jedi library in Star Wars. It's just got all the secret knowledge from his many years of doing this for real. So
it's primarily fiction, but I figure my thing is that I have my office. I get to decorate it however I want, and my wife gets the rest of the house. So I got to overload it with as many of the things I like as possible.
That's another one of our specialties, everyone, is relationship advice coming from your dads. And, that's another reason why we love Tim as a seasoned father and a seasoned husband. He can always bring those nuggets as well. So right on brand for us, Tim. Thank you.
Very relatable. Yep.
So we've got Tim with us tonight for just the opening part of the show because we want to be super respectful of his important time. So we're not going to do a full show with Tim. We're going to have him go through a few things with us before we start to jump through what's happened in the past couple of games for 100 Thieves. Now, you guys know that we've been firing off a lot of opinions that have been differing from some of yours about the players on this team and about the direction we're going in. So Tim is here to check us on all that. And I would like to start, Tim, from the most debated topic among 100 Thieves fans right now, which is Ryoma. The question is, how good or how bad is this kid? Is it worth keeping him around right now? Popular opinion seems to be that he's in the bottom tier of mid laners in the LCS. So in your opinion, do you agree with that? Or do you think he's got, some level of improvement that he can hit? Just in general, what are your opinions on this guy?
And I think I'll add to that our mid lane priority list from Crumbs and Mark Z had him at 9th, unanimous. So that's just kind of a good pulse on where people are looking at him at.
Yeah, it is a bit of a tough one on whether you think, the whole question of whether it's worth keeping him and how much can he grow and all that kind of stuff. I think that's a much more complicated question. But to start with, we're just talking about today. Where is Ryoma right now? How good is he and how much is he costing the team? Things like that. I think it's pretty unavoidable to point out that he has really not performed well this split. How that matches up to your expectations depends on where your expectations sat, but I would say mine coming in were not very high. I definitely scratched my head at the Ryoma signing. I went out and in the off season when it was announced, I watched a bunch of his VODs from the OPL.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see a player who was stomping the OPL and very clearly justified, hey, he's ready to take a step up into the LCS, and he's gonna he's got these amazing mechanical flashes that he's gonna he's just gonna work on some rough edges and he'll his potential is so high. I never saw that player.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a player who could play a straightforward style when the circumstances were in his favor. He could carry some games, but he didn't look like a playmaker to me. The really big gap for him was in the OPL was his ability to move outside of his lane. When there was a skirmish on the river, how quickly would he react, or how...
Tim had just got through telling us that he hasn't been as impressed by Ryoma's performance. In fact, hasn't been a whole lot of positive to point to in this. So, Tim, I wanted to pick that back up and ask you, I mean, there have been games where he's had, a nice KDA, he's had effective team fighting, even a game or two where he had nice skill shots. I mean, what do you make of anything of his team fighting potential, or is he just benefiting from being in the right place at the right time?
Yeah, it's always hard to say without having watched a player, like watching their Pro U, for example, and watch entire games from their perspective and that kind of stuff. So I try to kind of temper my analysis of individual players unless I've spent a lot of time watching them closely. And I definitely watched him more closely in my OPL reviews compared to, in the LCS games. I'm usually watching the team as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There definitely have been some games where Ryoma performed, decently. I think I wouldn't say he's ever really jumped out and impressed me and done something I'm like, oh, that was really good. I'm really impressed by that. But there have been games where I'm like, yeah, he did his job. He did it well. No issue with that. Often that has come with other people setting him up, from my perspective. Other people getting pressure on the map that allows him to do his job, or getting engages that allow him to do his job. Playing a champion like Orianna, you can look really good, but it does require a lot of synchronization with your teammates. So, I don't want to come across too negative on the guy. I don't think he's been, completely horrible. And, he hasn't seemed like the kind of player who throws games actively, which is definitely something you can see from certain players.
Mm-hmm.
He's not unstable in that way. He's just outskilled, I think. When he's losing lane, when he's getting caught out and solo killed, those are things where it's just some of the mid laners he's come up against just have a higher skill level than he does, and I'd rather have that than someone who goes out and throws, or and he's not throwing to me. So I think that's a positive, and I think if he can get those kind of individual skill aspects, the mechanics up, I think he can be serviceable. But yeah, I can't say that I've really seen it quite yet.
Do you think fans like us should be waiting on more development, or should we already be looking for the next option?
It's tough, because if in an open world where you could just say, and let's get the next mid laner, bring him in and move on, I think I would probably lean more towards that. But we're in a league and in an environment where you can't just pull players out and drop them in whenever you want to. You're invested in these guys. You've got contracts. You don't necessarily have a big pool of other players that you can just pick up and run with. So, I think I would definitely not worry about playing him out to the end of the spring split.
Mm-hmm.
I think depending how they feel about his improvement over the next few weeks, he may be a much better player in summer as well, with an off season to work on it in between. And I will also say that the last 2 weeks have had some improvement. I think the game against Evil Geniuses was probably Ryoma's best game that I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And if he can play at that level pretty consistently for the remaining games, that's going to be a much better second half of the season than he had in the first half, which is the trend you want to see. So I definitely wouldn't panic on the guy. Yep. I haven't seen anything to change my opinion that it didn't make a whole lot of sense to sign him in the first place. But now that he's here, and now that the team has him, I don't think there's not like giant red flags like like, hey, this guy's going to cost our team the entire year or anything like that. It's just a bit of a strange choice to assign him in the first place.
Which, not to dwell on the past, but I kind of feel like that's where we were when we started Saligo. I think for me, it felt like we were losing games because of his inability to hang, right? He was just getting bullied nonstop. There was no lane pressure. He was never forward in lane even. Like, it wasn't working. So I think, good and bad, right? We have a past example of this kind of an arrangement where we can say, we kind of have that benchmark to say he's probably doing better than, and Saligo is still our academy mid laner, right? So we have LCS games for both of them to look at and say how to go. And when you see games like he had against EG and Jizuke, you do feel a little bit more like, okay, so he is capable of showing up, right? It's just, I think, a question of, like you're saying, what's the chance that he starts to do that more often than not?
Yeah. And I would say I agree that, like, pulling someone like Saligo in would not improve the team. I think without kind of pulling the list of academy mid laners in front of myself again, the only person that really jumps out in academy that would be an improvement would be Damonte. If 100 Thieves came out and announced tomorrow, hey, we bought out Damonte and put him in our starting roster, I would actually be really excited about it. I think that would be an upgrade. But it's definitely not like Ryoma is worse than academy mid laners are in general. So yeah, it's not some giant black hole that's gonna suck the team down.
Right. Now, Tim, we're going from a player who's, had question marks flying all around him the whole split to someone who is the exact opposite in Ssumday. He is the standout star of the team. He's looked great in nearly every game that he's played. So we have this crazy asset in Ssumday of an import top laner who can basically do anything you need him to do for the first part of the game. But we're not really able to ride his coattails to success every week, right? We have done that a couple times already this split.
Every time.
So,
sometimes.
So in your opinion, are we using this guy properly, or, is there anything we can do differently that maximizes what Ssumday can offer 100 Thieves?
Yeah, I think on an individual front, he's doing exactly what he needs to. He's probably doing the best he can. I think his laning stats are really good. His golden experience difference is third behind Licorice and Impact. A little surprising to see Impact up there, especially given the way Team Liquid's season is gone. But
yeah,
when you're on, pretty much on par or close behind Licorice and doing that well, that looks pretty good. He's obviously split pushing like a madman all season long. He's been picking up all kinds of farm around the map, creating all kinds of map pressure. So whether it's in lane or later in the game, he's having a huge effect on the way the games are playing out. I think that's what you would kind of want, and that's what you'd kind of hope for from him, especially given the composition of the team around him, because you don't really have anyone else on the team who's going to step up and be a major carry without the right setup around them. Ssumday creates that for himself. With the right setup, Cody Sun can be a very strong carry. We saw that last year. He's able to step up in the pocket when it's created for him and do the damage and kind of close out the fights. But the roster that's around him right now is not the same. Doesn't have that same kind of dynamic playmaking or that same coordination that he was able to benefit from before. So Ssumday is the one who's kind of going out there and saying, like, I don't know what's going to happen with the other four players on the team from game to game, but I know what I can do. And he's going out and he's doing it. And, I think he's carrying the best he can. And so I think he's being used pretty well. I think really the issues with the team are what's happening with those other four players game to game, and whether they do well enough or work well enough with him to kind of bring about the overall success.
Yeah, and it's going to be a task for his contract's up at the end of this year, so it'll be a huge ask to keep him on this team going forward, barring some major improvements. And one of those areas of improvement that, in my opinion, we could definitely look for is what's going on in our bot lane in the support role. So Jordan and I have talked about this every week so far in the podcast, and we feel like Stunt has been the most glaring issue of this team. This is a team with many issues, but for us, he's the one that jumps off the screen to us as, someone who's in 90% of the games being completely ineffective and even counterproductive in a lot of cases. Is there anything statistically that shows up as to what's going on with Stunt, or is he just this like all in, go player and no one's on the same page? Like, what's your take on Stunt right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, support is a difficult role to evaluate, regardless, if you're just looking at statistics and looking at numbers on that. So I don't tend to evaluate supports too much on their numbers. If you do look at them for him, obviously they don't look good. He's got a
That's a lot of deaths. Yeah.
yeah, 44 deaths on the season so far, which is a lot. It's it's not good. But I will say that just based on watching him play this season, I actually thought in the first 3, even 4 weeks, I was actually feeling pretty good about him. I actually saw some really good games. I saw some good playmaking, good proactivity, movement around the map, and I wouldn't have said much negative about him. I would have chalked a lot of it up to the team. The last week or two, there have definitely been a lot more deaths popping up, and I haven't had as many kind of good moments to offset them. So my evaluation was definitely dropped in the last few games. But overall on the split, he hasn't showed up in my bad books too often until recently. I think he's often the victim of the team struggling. I think, like you said, he's a player who likes to go forward a lot. He likes to go out there and try to make something happen. And when it fails, that's going to result in a death. Compared to a player who might, hug his 80 carry, sit back, and the failure is he didn't do something he should have, and then they lose an objective or something like that without a death. So, I mean, kind of stylistically, I prefer to have a support who likes to move forward and likes to do something. And with a player like Cody Sun, that's exactly the player Vulcan was with him, and it worked out really well. But not just because of the support, because of the rest of the team as well, and the way they all worked as a unit. But I think Stunt is trying to do the right things. I think he's got kind of his mind in most of the right place, but it's working out less and less over time. And I think coordination issues with the team as a whole are a really big part of that, and he's kind of bearing the brunt of it more often than not. So yeah, he and the team as a whole haven't really grown forward the way I'd hoped they would.
Sure. Now, I mean, for me, like I felt like red flags were jumping out for me earlier, but maybe that's me being sensitive to what we saw as like an academy player that's moving up for us, and like my attention was definitely on like the bad for him. But yeah, it just seems like so many of these deaths have been ultra costly for him, and this has not been just his issue with the team. As you mentioned, one of the other things that we've seen is and this will be our last line of questioning, and we'll let you go off and be wild and free, but Meteos is a player that came back to this team surprisingly after everything that happened the first go round with him, but he had what honestly to me looked like a wonderful 2019, that summer split with Optic. He looked very good. So we thought, as long as the prior issues are all patched up, that he could be really effective for us. And I think what we've gotten is just a lot of unpredictability there, because there have been games such as this past weekend against EG where he was playing Rek'Sai and looked incredible, like looked very sharp, looked like the player we knew from summer 2019. And there are also games where he looks completely ineffective, or he's getting caught out, dying at costly times right before, dragons or barons. So we're just on this roller coaster ride with Meteos. In your opinion, is this something that is just part and parcel with having Meteos on your team at this point? Or is this something that, if he's able to find more synergy and more solid footing with the rest of the team, we can expect to be improved?
Yeah, it's hard to figure out Meteos sometimes. I have to say, over the last few years, he's always kind of been that jungler who is never bad enough for me to really like jump on and say, hey, this guy's doing terrible. And he's never been good enough for me to be to say, hey, he belongs in the discussion with the best junglers in the league. He's always kind of occupied that middle space, to the point that I think I tend to kind of not pay that much attention to his play, because I just don't expect too much to really go on with him either way.
Yeah.
I think his play this season has been something where a lot of my attention kind of has been pulled to him, but not necessarily because of his own mistakes or because of his own great plays either way. It's the way that he has played with his teammates, and just the fact that a lot of these really big coordination issues and the team doing things where they're not on the same page have had him involved, which doesn't mean it's his fault. And I'm definitely not going to come out and say this team isn't working well together as a unit, and that's because of Meteos. I have no idea if it's who's responsible for that, more or less. But there, especially in the first 2-3 weeks, there were all kinds of moments where, for example, Ssumday would be pushing up his lane, Meteos would go for an invade, thinking, hey, he's got lane priority behind him to get backed up. And then Ssumday backs off and starts pulling the wave the other direction. Meteos stays on his invade and gets picked off.
Yep.
They just go, okay, well, if one of you backs up, both you have to back up. If one of you goes forward, the other one backs him up, it's fine. That play's going to work. But it just, they were doing different things and apparently not talking about it. Things like that, things in team fights, things with, between him and Ryoma, between him and Ssumday especially. And I saw a lot of those kind of moments where it just seemed like the team wasn't on the same page. And I think that really makes a jungler's job a lot more difficult. And you could potentially speculate that that's the jungler's job to make that work and to be facilitating that communication better and kind of put the blame on him. Or you could say the laners aren't listening to him or aren't feeding him the right information. In the example before, it may be that Ssumday has to say, hey, I'm backing off. And he doesn't say it. Meteos doesn't realize because he's watching other parts of the map. That communication is a whole team-wide thing. But the jungler is the one who often tends to suffer from it the most when it's not there. Whether that's in the way he paths early or whether it's the way the team fights are working out. So I think Meteos has really been at the heart of a lot of that for some topic that is really team-wide. But that's really hurt his ability to perform. Like Ryoma, I think his most recent game was his best game so far. And if we see that as a light at the end of the tunnel, or as like an indication of a positive movement, then this could be turning around. But I'm not sure what we're going to get. I don't think Meteos is the guy who's going to suddenly, start carrying at the same level Ssumday does and suddenly become this dynamic duo or something. Like I would never have that expectation for him. But if he is going to kind of become more of a voice, and if he's going to start maybe leading Ryoma around a little bit more, or finding back some of the roam synergy that he had with Stunt in the first couple of weeks, because I did notice a lot of positive plays with the two of them working together better than he seemed to be working with some of the other players. And if that can come back a little more consistently, maybe that'll help out Stunt as well. There's potential there, and I think forward moving success for the team does involve Meteos at its core. Hard for me to speculate on whether that's going to happen or not.
Yeah. Well, hard for anyone to really predict at this point. I mean, and especially. Go ahead, Jordan. You first.
I was going to say the biggest bummer of this is, and this is what me and Cole will talk about for the rest of the time after we let you go. You look at his best game of the split, EG, and that was like everybody's worst game against TL. I mean, it fell so flat.
Yeah.
So it isn't a straight upwards trajectory, right? Because we have the very next game. It was like, well, okay.
Yeah. Now I think part of me wonders just like, when the Meteos thing will just kind of go away. I mean, like he's been playing for a really, really long time. Like how long can you keep up play at a high professional level? Like I said, summer 2019, he looked great. I don't think he's a disaster for us, but definitely someone who we're looking to give us more if we want to win going forward. So final question, Tim, and then we'll let you go. Where do you have us finishing this split?
Whew, that's a tough one. I think right outside the playoff bubble is probably, it's what I would have expected going into the split, and it's around where I think it'll land.
Yeah.
The teams around them are going to look a lot different than I anticipated because it's what a weird split it's been in that way. But I mean, mostly because of CLG. And what do you say?
CLG.
EG to some extent as well. But yeah, I think there's an outside chance they could sneak their way in if everything comes together and some other teams continue to kind of completely blow up. But yeah, I think 7th, maybe dropping down to 8th is probably around where I'd look. And overall, that wouldn't really be a big shock to me on what I would have said back in January, December.
Yeah.
But I think as long as the growth curve continues, or starts to level out, and we see these positive games, maybe 2 out of 3 rather than 1 out of 2, that would be that would make me feel okay about Summer and their ability to move forward.
Well, hey, Summer, 8 teams making the playoffs, so as long as we're not CLG and one other team who will, I'm sure there'll be someone random in 9th place. Maybe it'll be us. Who knows? But we're gonna try our best, and we're gonna root for the team in the meantime. Tim, thank you for coming here tonight to share your statistics with us, to drop actual knowledge for the people instead of just us just spouting whatever opinions come to our mind. We're grateful and look forward to having you way back in on this stuff next split too, man. We got to have you back to do this again. And then
Tim,
maybe
any place.
Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
I was going to say, let's make sure we give Tim a chance to shout out his socials, wherever he wants people to look him up, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who would love to continue the conversation later on too. But go ahead, Cole.
Oh, I was just going to say, maybe in the off season we get Tim to do a crossover video with us where we get a tour of his office and he can show us all his books and treasures.
We're going to need a studio tour.
How to decorate like a man. All right. Tim, thanks again for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. And we'll look forward to speaking to you again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on. If you do want to give me a follow, you can drop my socials. Just look up my name. If you can figure out how to spell it, then you
yeah. Fortunately, in our stream, it's right there under your beautiful face. We have your Twitter handle there. So go follow Tim, please.
No spelling required.
Tim. Yeah.
And if you guys really love being 100 Thieves fans and you want to earn some points off them in fantasy, you can jump on the Esports One League of Legends fantasy as well. It's a lot of fun. So
yeah, we actually do have someone in the chat asking about Esports One specifically. So I don't know if you want to give a real quick plug for that as well. Just kind of
definitely just fantasy.esports1.com. You can jump on there and it's a weekly draft, and you get to it just makes it that much more fun watching the players and cheering for the guys that you picked. And,
sure, we've got a lot of fantasy fans.
Yeah, we need stuff to cheer for and to be hopeful about, and it's not always 100 Thieves. So
yeah, unfortunately.
All right, Tim. Thanks. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Thanks, man.
All right. What a knowledgeable man he is.
I feel enlightened, Cole.
I feel enlightened, but I also feel a little sad because the wind in our sails is out a little bit more than it was earlier, and that's because Tim is the king of the reality check. So
yeah, that's I don't know, not a lot consistent with what we've been talking about. So at some point we'll have to try to figure out here how to reconcile these two worldviews, and I think the only thing to do that is more time, Cole, more games against EG, perhaps.
More games against EG. Well, actually, I think it's pretty easy to reconcile with Tim. He is smarter and better than we are, so go with him instead of us. That's the secret.
Yeah, it hurts to discard your strongly held beliefs. I'm experiencing that pain.
Yeah. Well, hey, then let's console your pain by having a brief conversation about this weekend's game against EG, because hey, it was pretty good. It's not bad at all. Jordan, the first thing that you had on your list with EG was Meteos, and I have to shout him out for having a very clean Rek'Sai game. I thought there were very few mistakes from his end, and to the other point, I thought there were a lot of great plays by him, a lot of great displays of mechanics, like a huge outplay on Sven Skaren for a kill. Really proud of his performance in this one, and just being like, man, can you bring that to Team Liquid tomorrow? And it didn't happen, but we'll save that one.
It was, I mean, in the past weeks, I've written as a note that even when we lose, Ssumday's a fun player to watch. And I think that's true almost every week. There are some weeks where he just doesn't really have that much to do, and so it's not a lot of fun. But every time you're watching him, there's a chance that he's going to pop off in a way that just completely crushes someone's psyche. for the rest of the game, even if their team wins. And that's what I come to see, these young people who work incredibly hard have their hopes and dreams shattered at Ssumday's feet. That's why I'm a 100 Thieves fan. Partially. That's one thing I always look forward to. This was one of those games where I feel like Meteos kind of showed up in the same way, right?
Yeah.
Like he was everywhere. He was ganking top. He was ganking bot. He was outplaying people. He was 1v1ing. He was 1v2ing. He, like, some of the mechanical plays he popped were insane. You know, interactions that I didn't know were a thing until I saw him do it. And I was like, I guess that makes sense. So
yeah, like his interrupt on Svenska,
yeah,
like that whole thing. I was like, oh wait, huh? He can cancel that? Yeah. It was...
Timeout. That seems like a bug. Shouldn't they address that? So yeah, that was. I mean, it was kind of the first time I feel like we've really had a chance to see him play that kind of game. This split, he's had good games, but he's not had the kind of game where it's like, oh, Ssumday or Media. See, I just automatically go to Ssumday. Oh, Meteos.
A Freudian slip.
Yeah. And he got player of the game. So everybody recognized that he was on it and he was hitting. And Cole, it leads me to a question that I want to ask you.
Oh, okay, great. I can't wait.
Yeah. Now that our actual League of Legends expert has departed the show, I'm going to hit some hard questions your way. Partially what I'm wondering here, before Tim was on, we were just kind of talking a little bit. And one of the things he talked about was draft and how it's so hard to do statistical analysis of draft because in the data, it doesn't show you pick and ban order, right? So you can't really do things like do a quick look at who is getting counter picks, who's getting blind picked. That just doesn't show up in the data. So it's harder. I believe, and this is where my memory is not super clear, but I believe this was like a last pick Rek'Sai or
no, it was a fourth pick Rek'Sai.
Okay, but I think we knew that Lee Sin was being played. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, no, you're wait, let's see. Let's draft orders. No, we didn't know.
We didn't know. So they picked Lee Sin into this. It was a horrible mistake on EG's part. Why did they ever do that? But I guess my point is, if Meteos is somebody who, you know, we have the opportunity.
We did. Okay, I'm playing this out like I'm looking at my paper.
This makes more sense now.
We did.
So
yep.
if we line Meteos up with more of these kinds of picks, is it possible that he has more games like this? And I think I don't have a strong stance on this either way. It's an interesting question to ask.
Well, I mean, Rek'Sai is one of his comfort champs, right? And obviously he can play to counter Lee Sin very well. I feel pretty comfortable with him on Rek'Sai at all times. He's proven to be a good player. I know a lot of people have a problem with him on Gragas, and I don't. Like, I think he's been okay on Gragas. We've just had bad games as a team, but I don't have that specific problem with him. I don't know though. Like, I feel like he's been in the league so long that he should know how to play through all of these matchups, and I feel like for the most part he does. And a lot of the problems that seem to happen with him are more related to decisions he's making in the jungle rather than like how he plays the champion.
Yeah,
that's my silver take on it. You know, like I was like, some of the earlier games are split. We're like, well, if we get a gank, you know, that would be great. And he's done that a lot more on the games where he's been popping off. And I know all those things are circumstantial. Sometimes you can gank, sometimes you can't, which we'll get to in the Team Liquid game. So yeah, I mean, I think again, I'm finding him playing Rek'Sai like almost any time. I don't think he's so make or break with which champion he's playing, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a champion who falls off towards the later part of the game, right? And I think there was that moment where I was like, are we going to let them come back into this game? Is that what we're about to do?
Yeah.
And I think in large part because his ability to impact the game in the late stages is just not as great as it is in the mid when he's playing Rek'Sai. So that's one thing to always kind of keep in mind. Like, you got to win earlier if you're going to take that champ. And we did a really good job of that. And that game was very decisive on our part. So, you know, it's probably not one of those that is always a good pick, but certainly if the matchup is there and the team comp supports it, that's good, and a good one to know that we have on call as needed.
Sure. Ssumday was obviously a big factor in this game.
Bully. He was
so
the boss.
we should probably talk about that. His set was much cleaner than the first set game he had this split.
It was.
And he didn't, like, in terms of KDA, it didn't show up tremendously, his impact, but it was kind of like on the Lucian game where he really, really was super important and valuable the whole game. And he was bullying Kumo around like crazy during the early part of the matchup.
That was disrespectful. That level 1 pre a single CS. He had more punches on Zach than CS for like 4 minutes.
Yeah, he did.
There's a stat for you.
And like, there's one point in the game where he like roamed down and was like taking chickens.
Yeah.
And it's just like I don't know. I feel maybe I'm wrong, hungry. But I feel like I don't see that often on a set top lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he even had like the boss toss over the wall at one point, which was super slick.
It was. Did somebody flash out of a fight and then just like boop back in? Here we go.
I can't remember if it was a flash or not, but he definitely got the boss toss in over the wall. It was
really
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
I would love to see the pro view of that, right? Where it's like darkness and then I'm escaping and just suddenly back in. That would be a bad feeling.
Oh no.
Oh dang it. He got me.
Yeah. I will say this though. So it was a decisive win for us, you know, but I still felt like we were kind of shaky during mid and late game at times where it was like, all right, like we really just have to make a decision and do something. We looked very tentative at times. Not sure like if we should make an objective play or, you know, just push down a lane. It was kind of weird. And it felt like the throw was coming a couple times and that could be PTSD, but you know, am I wrong? Like it does. I don't think this win was truly as dominant as maybe it looked on paper.
Yeah. The way I thought about it was decisive in that we never really put ourselves in a position to lose that game. There was one fight that we lost. I think we dropped 2 people. It was a 2-0 fight. And they got a turret off it. I think it's a tier 1 turret, right?
Yeah.
We were able to recoup and kind of get back on the map. And we weren't in risk of losing at that point. The thing that obviously was being called out was we weren't going for Baron. Like we didn't go.
That's right.
We had 2 jungler picks and we did not go for Baron. And there was a listen to JLXP, great podcast, by the way. If you're not listening to that yet, please start listening.
It's the best League of Legends podcast.
There's a new one like every day. So that's fantastic too. I'm not sure what the schedule is, but it's great. But they were talking about there's a team who, and I'm going to forget now who it was, not important, but they were having a really good game and they went for a 50-50 Baron. And that was like the wrong play.
Oh, I think the TSM
might have been TSM
game. Yeah.
Yeah. And they got it, but it was a 50-50, right? It was a coin toss. So there's part of me that was wondering as I was thinking about this game, did they just not go for the Baron because they didn't think they needed to? And then they did win really quickly without it, right? The power level was so much higher.
Yeah.
I think that at that point they knew, and this is what I'm kind of my charitable view of what happened. They knew that if they got into a team fight, they would win it. And that's exactly what they did. They forced a team fight in the base, even though it wasn't clean and it wasn't one that we just completely outplayed them on. It didn't really matter. We were so much stronger that I think we just said, okay, let's just go fight them. And then we'll get at least 2 or 3 kills. Very good chance. And then we'll win.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we did.
I remember at some point just being like, you know, like Meteos is 2 levels up on Svenskeren.
Yeah.
Ssumday was a couple levels up on Ssumday was like 5 levels up on Zazel at one point, which I know is like top laner to support, but still it's just like we had huge advantages across the thing. So
it's like you see the top laner as support, you just run. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You gotta go.
And then the other thing is let's call out Ryoma really quick before we move to the game. I mean, he had a KDA of 20, 7, 1, and 13 specifically.
Not great.
I will say, to the credit of everybody who doesn't care for Ryoma on this team, I saw a lot of people giving him credit for this game. Yeah. I don't think this is a situation where like he solo won this game or anything like that. Like he wasn't a solo carry, right? No. He didn't carry as hard as Ssumday did, but he did very admirably. He won his lane like in any measure. It was only by a little bit when it comes to like CS and stuff, but he still won against Jizuke, who's an aggressive import mid laner.
LEC import mid laner for
And
anybody keeping score.
I believe, wasn't he a world semifinalist in 2018? Or
Is that how that worked?
I think so. Yeah, maybe even maybe quarters, but yeah, on Vitality. I don't know. He did really well at Worlds 2018. It might have been quarters, but he has a pedigree to him that's really good. Everyone's saying no. So someone tell me where he finished that year in 2018, because Vitality had a run and he was good.
Yeah, I do remember that. He had a really strong 18, a really off 19, maybe even taking time off, I think.
Yeah.
And then is LCS.
Yeah.
But either way, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, he's a mid laner of a similar kind of reputation. Obviously, a much more developed and established one. But everybody's been talking about him being kind of inconsistent, which is part of the reason EG is, about where we are in the standings. Super aggro. We all remember the LeBlanc game. So it's always good to see your mid laner do well in those matchups, because those are the matchups you need to do well in if you hope to finish towards the playoff side of the table instead of the bottom side of the table.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I've looked it up. So what I'm remembering from 2018 is that on the last day of groups, he went off. And Vitality took down both Gen.G and RNG, who were among the favorites for the tournament, that
good
year.
Day in groups.
Yeah. So and he specifically was going off. So that's what I'm remembering. Like he did extremely well during that. So yeah, I mean, so credit to Ryoma for having a good game by all measures. And like Tim said, some improvement to perhaps point to.
Yeah, and like we talked, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to revisit these same things. We talked about him trading aggressively. In previous games, he traded aggressively and it didn't mean anything. He didn't get anything for it. In this game, he traded aggressively pretty early and he got a flash.
Yeah.
And he got a kind of a forced back, right? That's how you generate leads in lane. So those are the kinds of things I'm going to keep looking for and watching for. And when I see them, I'm going to take a note and I'm going to feel pretty good about it. And the other thing I'll say on this, he was playing Orianna. He didn't have any massive shockwaves that turned the game. Like that wasn't how the game ended.
Mm-hmm.
And he just showed up and he team fought really well, right? That's how you collect enough kills to have a 20 KDA, is you show up to team fights and you do your job, which is to deal damage when you're that champion, or like a game ending engage. So like, I'm not going to say that he single-handedly carried the game and swayed it, but he got a lot of kills and that helps. That does us well too. So I like that game from him.
Yep. Oh wow, excuse me, hiccup right when I was going to continue. So I guess we should talk about Team Liquid. For those of you who may not have been aware, we did play a League of Legends game on Sunday, and we at least were present for it. I'm not sure we were clicking the mouse clickety clicks and tapping the keyboard tappity taps. But we were there in body at the LCS studio while Team Liquid was also there.
Physically accounted for. We got participation credit.
Yeah. And someone tweeted at me, I think this was Nobody Gaming, who tweeted at me like, I think Friday, was like, hey, did you see, double lifts out? We just got a lot better chance to win this game. and I don't think I liked the tweet, because when I read it, something in my head was like, this is that kind of game. This has the potential to be that kind of game. So I was not, you didn't see me on Team Liquid's Twitter talking spicy this time. There was just a feeling about it. And, I have said all along, I think they're going to return to form and be super good and, be the number 2 team for NA. Even if they don't get their standings wise, like they will be the second best team. So yeah, I just had that feeling, but I didn't quite anticipate how this thing would play out. And I hate to do this after all the time and energy I've spent telling you guys you're way too quick to blame the draft. And games are not just lost at the draft. This was a really bad draft.
Yeah. It was a Yuumi pick.
It was many things. So as we're drafting, I'm taking my little notes as we're going along, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, wow, we are going to get counterpick here for both Ssumday and Ryoma. And we kind of wasted that opportunity. Like, I don't know. We picked Aatrox into set. Azir
Some
to
people say
Syndra, I don't fully understand that matchup, I'll admit, but is like Azir okay?
Well, I mean, at that point, there were just, I feel like there were a lot of mid bans, weren't there?
Let's look. Let's go to the tape.
Yeah.
There was a Syndra ban from them,
Yeah.
and that's it. Mid.
How about us? Who
We
did
banned. Oh, I'm sorry. No. I was looking at picks. Okay, so they banned out Cassio. That's the only mid they banned out, and we banned out Zoe. So there were 2 mid lane picks banned out, one of which we definitely use, which is Zoe. And we went Azir into the Syndra, and it wasn't great. We went Aatrox in a set, and it wasn't great. We should have.
I don't feel like that was anything, like that wasn't on Ryoma. I don't feel like.
What, the pick?
Just the how it went.
Or the loss? Well,
just the it didn't go great, but I don't think it could have gone great. I don't see that going great.
Yeah, well, I
kind of
just
your point of like that's what we went with, Azir and the Syndra.
Now, I will say with the Yuumi pick, I was trying to understand it at first. I was like, okay, I feel like Stunt has been inting a lot this split, and it's really costed us. Yeah, so it's like Yuumi, all right, maybe we hide that, like he just plays as another player basically and never dies. I didn't realize that was gonna be wrong, and he didn't int per se. Like, he only died once. But this pick was a bad pick. He was bad on the Yuumi. And the level 1 thing happened where they, like, I don't know, they just didn't think they were there. Actually, if you look at the minimap, I think there was a ping from us onto the minimap saying that Broxa was on blue when he was actually starting red, or vice versa, or whatever. We had him, like, in the wrong location. And so everything kind of spiraled out of control from there, and Meteos got 3 buffed, I think. It was bad, man. What else can we say about this draft? Like, I hate to say it, but of all the drafts that we've had, this one like reeked the most to me.
Well, I want to shout out Dylan. He sent through a long form take on the draft, and it was really well thought out. It belongs somewhere. That is not just me trying to remember.
It belongs in the Library of Congress.
It does, Dylan.
It's written in iambic pentameter.
But I mean, this is Dylan's take on it, and I think it's a good take. He said, I think that they were surprised to find Yuumi open, and in finding Yuumi open, they're like, that's a meta pick. We should probably take it, right? And then we saw what happened from there. So for me, that's what I'd say about the draft. It's like that we didn't, when Keith and Golden Guardians picked Yuumi against us, there's that moment where I was like, oh no, it's a meta pick. What have we done? We just saw how this went. And it went the same for Golden Guardians as it did for us. It's just it's like they were playing with 4 players. They were like a person down like the whole game. And that's how it felt for me this time around.
That might be true, but like I said, I wonder if part of them were like, oh, well, like Stunt can't die. Cool. This will be great. But man, the mechanics were 40
seconds in.
He was missing so many of the Qs. The ults weren't great. There weren't that many of them. I mean, I was thinking of like how I've seen the Yuumi bot lane play out, and I just remember, man, this is oppressive because it's like they're ulting all the time and like just poking you out, and like we didn't get that play style from him at all. Like we just didn't get the advantages that we should have.
Here's something that I think is real. They got that kill, and then we never caught up, and I think there's no better illustration of that than the fact that there's a 2v1 scenario. It was Cody and Stunt versus Team Liquid substitute ADC Tactical, and we freaking lost. We lost the 2v1 hard.
Can I say though that like Core JJ played out of his mind
Oh yeah,
on Tarek.
He is great.
It was
and yeah,
so
his Tarek
so
was
good.
devastating.
The Tarek Callista lane was like terrifying.
But he wasn't there for this. This is just truly us trying our best to fight him, and we couldn't.
Yeah.
And in that situation, I think like we just weren't strong enough. You know, like you get the jump, you have more people there. We just weren't going to win that game. Like after a certain point, there's no way. And then that was not the only time where we had we tried a play and it worked against us.
Yeah, like actively put us in the wrong position.
Yeah, we tried something and we came out with less than we went in.
Now, a lot of there's a lot of questions about Meteos because he didn't seem to do anything in this game. And when I first watched it, I was particularly upset about this because I was like, gosh, man, like do something and don't die for no reason and all this stuff. But again, Dylan came through with another long form take, and I wanted to kind of work through this because it was enlightening to me and probably will be for some of you, or those of you who already know this will just say, hey, Cole, I told you this already. But look, this is really done well by him. His take, and this is Craven Dylan in Twitch chat. His take was that the draft left Meteos nothing to do early, right? And here's his reasoning. I'm going to work through it. It says, look at the lanes. Top is set versus Aatrox. That means low percentage ganking, right? Like, how do you gank set effectively? You have one choice, and that's to bring 3 people who deal a lot of damage there. That's basically the only way you can do it, right? Jungle, Sejuani versus Gragas. Can't really do anything in the 1v1, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mid lane, Syndra versus Zir. No pressure, no follow-up CC before level 6, right?
Yep.
Bot lane, Ezreal and Kalista, no pressure, no CC. And not to mention how that lane went. Okay? So you're already like, dealing with Meteos with nothing to do just based on the matchups. But then Dylan went even further. He looked at objective control. He said, mid and bot lanes never pushed in, especially after that early death by Stunt.
Yep.
So we have no Drake control, and mid always has faster roam to Herald. So what is Meteos supposed to do? And that was a powerful way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, and some other people like Darkuth is in chat. Some other people have brought similar takes, but I really like the way that that Dylan thought about this and organized it. And yeah, okay, that was actually pretty persuasive for me. Like, all right, I guess Meteos can't really do much, but
yeah. And
can you also not die like for no reason? Because he did a couple times. Wow, I just knocked something over because I'm so passionate about this.
We've seen him have a good AP Gragas game, right?
Yeah,
it takes time. Yeah. You don't start hitting that way levels 1 through 4, right? Like you need some items, you need some farm. It takes, maybe you get a successful gank or 2, right? Get some assists or some plate gold. You get a Rift Herald and you drop it and you collect some plates, right? You got to have a little bit of time to build your Gragas,
right?
And he didn't have that, and so he's just showing up, rolling out barrels that people could just move around, like, or just let it hit you. Who cares? It doesn't do any damage to you because we're so far behind. So that the good Gragas games he's had, and I know he plays a lot of Gragas. He has his split. I'm not convinced it's a great champ for us, to be honest with you. Like, his barrels aren't usually, like, I watched another Gragas recently and I was like, dang, that barrel was devastating. That was a 3-kill barrel.
I'm not sure I'm fully on board with this. I mean, I've seen him miss some ults pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The casks, not the barrel.
Okay, the casks. Okay, yeah.
Like, the casks he throws oftentimes don't do much.
Yeah, I've seen him throw some bad casks, but like, I think there was a weekend where we played TSM and somebody else not too distantly, and he played Gragas both games, and in one he smashed, and in the other he was still pretty good even though we lost. So I don't know, mixed feelings about it. And maybe if you're looking at it in a holistic sense with the team, maybe, but I don't feel too bad with him on Gragas, honestly.
Yeah, well, at least
maybe
in this
it's just
game,
me.
There was no chance for him to actually get going, so he didn't.
Yeah, well, actually, here, I'm going to let you talk for a second. I'm going to look up what he's played this this season in terms of junglers, because I feel like it's been like Sejuani and Gragas mostly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even like to look at stat lines for the games like this because I just don't feel like they can. Like, they should remove this game from our player stat lines.
Yeah.
Like, Ssumday and Ryoma, again, like, they weren't really able to do anything. You try hard and you die, and you try, I guess, to die fewer times, but it's like this, and I'm not really being serious now, but I don't look at that and say, like, oh, Ssumday didn't have a very good game, so I guess that means he's not too good.
Right.
Did you look it up?
By the way, yeah, he's played Gragas 3 times and he's 3-3 on it. Or, excuse me, 6 times and he's 3-3 on it. He played Jarvan a couple times early on, but yeah, so Jarvan, Gragas, Sejuani, Lee Sin, and Rek'Sai. And this is weird to me. Tell me if you think this is weird too. He's only had 1 Rek'Sai game.
Yeah. That's all I remember.
To me, it's like no, like he's good. Like, let's play Rek'Sai. Mm-hmm. He's only had 1 game, and it was clean though. But
it was.
Yeah. Oh man, but yeah. So tactical popping off, like, is that purely a stunt thing? Do you think?
Tactical versus.
Yeah. So like tactical popped off, right?
Yeah. I mean, Stunt got caught level 1.
Yeah, so he got the 1 kill, but I mean, he was just bullying around in lane, and like, was this Stunt's fault, or did Cody have some of the blame here?
I think you always look at moments like that, and you kind of say, like, well, who knows what happened? I always kind of look at moments like this. It feels a little bit like the you've been hooked by a thresh who was standing in the bush moment. It's like, draw a straight line between the point that you're standing and where the bush is, and if there's not a minion there, move. I kind of feel like this with like you if you don't know where they are, if you can't see them, then you have 2 choices on where you can play in lane. You can play closer to the river or closer to the bush. If you're closer to the river, unless they're in that one river bush, you're fine, right? If they come in any other way, and maybe drop a ward there if you don't know where they are. So there's just too many bushes there. Don't stand there. It feels like you're on the wrong side of this play. Like, what are you doing? And then, yeah. So I'm not going to give him a free pass on that. Like, he was playing the champion that died level 1.
Yeah. Well, I do think this was Cody's like first game of the split where he really like didn't look good at all to me. I think most of the split has been like, oh, we don't really notice Cody. And when we pay attention to him, it's like, oh, he's playing well. He's playing fine. He's solid. But in this game, to me, it was like, oh, this is not a good game. Yeah. But again, it's not like anyone did anything. Like, no one, we didn't even get a single kill in this game, right?
Right. For a lot of this game, yeah, they didn't. You are Ezreal against 2 people, basically, right? And you have that much more to try to deal with, and you're behind, and so it doesn't really matter if you hit your skill. Like, it's just a losing proposition the whole time, the whole way.
Yeah. And another thing, one final note on this game, unless you got more to say, but I don't think we saw a single ult from Ryoma. I can't remember one.
He did some.
He did like some, like multiples.
I think so. I don't think they mattered. Is the thing. They don't think it mattered.
Oh, okay.
Because nothing mattered.
Man,
we saw Ssumday hit an ult when he was being absolutely destroyed. Right? Like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It just feels like at least there was nothing memorable, which Azir is like a champ where that ult is such a playmaking tool, especially like it just ruins team fights a lot of the times, and there was absolutely none of it. So it's like everybody just, were we so happy with the Saturday win that we just like, okay, whatever. Like, no one played. I don't know. It was weird for me.
I mean, part of me just feels like it was losing. It was a losing matchup in every lane. The draft. I think it comes back to it. I really do.
Yeah.
Like, if we gave, let's say, like, in these kinds of situations, let's say we put Ssumday on a champ we actually felt could counter set in some meaningful way, instead of an Aatrox, which I guess the opinion is like, hey, you can kind of hold your own. Maybe he loses. He lost anyway. Like,
yeah.
And I get it, right? You're not finishing your draft being like, ooh, that was horrible. Or maybe they were. I don't know. Maybe this goes differently if he doesn't die level 1. There's a lot of question marks. I don't think it goes that much differently because, that bot lane was just so oppressive that I don't see really that anything goes so differently.
Yeah. I want to, before we wrap this up, I want to just read through some of the listener questions and takes because some of them are funny and good, and we don't necessarily need to talk through these, because I think most of them are self-evident, but did want to shout out Darkuth because he speaking of this draft, he said the draft was the worst draft I've ever seen as a 100T fan. Despite having the opportunity to counterpick twice, we had 3 losing lanes. We never had a chance. The lazy level 1 just mega sealed the deal. No way we come back from that with the draft. And then Osmar P18 followed up with, does it not seem like most of our matches are lost right from draft? Which in general, I would disagree with that, but I do think this draft against Liquid was not good. And It's Chase 26 said, we are hands down the most consistently inconsistent team. It's frustrating battling all on one. It is like we have like multiple personalities and you don't know which one is gonna show up on the day. Dr. Nolly said, Stunt gets constantly solo killed on tankier supports. Why'd they think Yuumi was a good idea? They're just like, okay, yeah, I did see that happening a lot. And he says, not saying he was the only problem. But yeah, that's a good point as well. Let's do and one more listener take just for a feel good time. B Klein 07 said they should find Ryu. He said, I think Ryu was super underrated mid laner, and this meta fits him perfectly. He's super good on control mages like Victor, Syndra, LeBlanc, Ryze, etc. They wouldn't have to make any trades, and they could put Ryoma in Academy to develop. Plus, Ryu has played with every starter except Stunt, which is an underrated point.
Just run it all the way back.
Yeah.
Cool. The same
it's
lineup.
It's the same solution.
Just redo it.
It's the same solution. Bring back Ryu. Ryu, where are you?
What, has anybody checked his Twitter lately? Is he still in LA? What do we got?
I think he has ascended.
You guys see the new Star Wars movies, right?
He just went to a new plane of existence. Anyway, I'm not calling for Ryoma to be out yet. I'm not. I have more faith in him than Tim, but Tim's a smart guy. Who knows?
I thought you were gonna say you have more faith in him than Stunt. So yep, that too.
That too. Let's talk apparel drop and then let's get out of here because we're running over. So the apparel drop was very interesting. Pop-up shop for the first time done by 100 Thieves. And did you guys see the line? There was like a video. I wish I could just post this into chat. Maybe someone will find this. The drone shot of the line. And I think they said they had 500 people show up.
It's wild, man. Like
over 500 people on the day, which is you gotta feel good about that kind of showing on your first ever pop-up shop when you have like an international fan base and everything. Having people in the flesh in LA is something special. So from that side of it, it looked really fun. Like I'm not gonna lie. So I'm an old man, and like experiences like I don't go to music festivals, right? Because I'm old and I don't want to be uncomfortable and sweaty, like. But I did see those guys like camping out, and was like, man, that would actually be pretty fun. Not gonna lie. I was like,
when they released the Nintendo Wii, I camped out at Best Buy.
Yeah, it's like doing something like that, man. That seemed like really fun to do. So I'm a little sad I missed out on that. But fortunately, I was able to make arrangements to get the in-person pop-up item. So that is on the way to me. And I'm very excited to wear that red tee.
Cole will not be defeated.
I will do my best to not be defeated. I don't know how long this is going to keep up, but I did purchase every single item of this drop. And that speaks to the larger conversation, which was how the drops have been evolving. And I think like improvements, in my opinion, have been made like pretty much all around, like on the drop process, because early on in the history of 100T, it was like there was no real like captchas or protection or anything like that. And then sometimes the payment options were kind of weird. In general, though, you could get if you were there like right when the drop started, you could get what you wanted. And then in the middle, it kind of got tricky. There were more significant problems. There were server hangups. You remember that one time the like pay button didn't load?
Yeah, that was bad.
You know, that was like, or checkout or whatever it was. There was a button that like literally didn't load. And then sometimes like quantities were going in wrong and people would like be forced to buy like more than they wanted. So there were like some issues in there. And then you'd like be in a queue that you didn't really understand and it would take a long time to get your stuff. I mean, they have like really turned this around. It's fast now.
Yeah.
Inventory numbers have gone up, but it's still selling out. But this drop is still smooth. Like I said, I bought the whole collection, so I was able to get everything, you know, and get out. And I know some people missed out on some items, but if you are there and prepared, like you can get your stuff.
Yeah, there's a very good chance. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I even had it. You know, it used to be like if you misclicked something, like, well, sorry. On this one, like I added something and I thought about it for a second. I was like, I added that too. I was like, you know, I'm gonna change the quantity on that. Like it just, I was there right when it went live, and I was able to get that stuff. So it's nice. It builds in a little bit of like flexibility, so it's not so insane.
Yeah.
And I had like the short queue for actually getting the checkout. It said you're gonna have to wait a few minutes. We're very busy, and then like 3 seconds later, it let me in. So
yeah,
flawless.
It had in chat. I don't know if you saw. He said he was there and he camped out. He said if I hook on a small grill. That is awesome. And yeah, I'm jealous of that experience because like that just looked like really fun to me. Anyway, so stuff should be shipping out soon. I understand. I haven't got my shipping notice yet, but I'm excited to see everything in person. Like, you know, we were fortunate enough. I mean, you're wearing the hoodie, and you know they sent us some things and it was cool. Like it seems great. So.
Yeah.
Interested to get my hands on the rest of it. And as always, everyone, dear listeners, we did buy some things for y'all. So keep your eyes on us. We'll be doing giveaways as we always do because we like to spread that love around. So I think that's going to do it, man. Look, I just the State of the Union address right now is just like
I'm ready for it.
I shouldn't have said that because that makes it look like I have something prepared. But like I'm just saying like it feels just everything is so unpredictable right now.
Yep.
And it's just frustrating. I guess in my head I didn't think we'd be higher up in the standings than we are, but I did feel like we would have a more consistent level of play. Like, I didn't think we'd have like games where like we looked really great and clean and then games where we looked really bad. I just thought we would kind of be middling and then maybe you'd see small changes or whatever, but it's hard to predict how we're going to play each week. And that's been a little difficult. I keep reminding myself it's spring, like it's spring and there's time to like figure these things out. But man, we're already past week 6 now. We're on the back third of the split. And we have work to do if we're going to make playoffs, which I think for you and I both, Jordan, was kind of our bar for like what we considered the split definitely successful if we got into that top 6, you know, compared to how we finished last year.
Yeah, I think that was it. That was one of our big things. You know, we have more wins certainly than we have in 2019, like for a big chunk of the year, 2019. So that feels good. But I agree. And this weekend felt kind of to me like it wasn't even like we're just not, it's like we didn't show up. And those are always confusing games. It's like, man, we didn't even really, like you said, we didn't really play this game. It just makes it hard to get a sense for how good we're doing. Like, are we progressing? You play a game like that, and it's like, well, we didn't learn anything. There's so many games like that in 2019 where you and I would get onto this show and we just kind of say, like, what did we learn other than the fact that we lost real bad? And those games are frustrating in a different way than games where you make misplays, you know, like you go for an objective that you shouldn't have gone for, right? Like those things at least tell you something about the state of the players and kind of where they're at. This is one of those games where you're just like, well, I try again next week, I guess. That's what we learned. So we will.
Yeah, we will.
Next week we got I wrote down it's
Dignitas
it's
and Immortals. So
Dignitas and Immortals.
teams
both
who
of-
have slipped and are now
yeah.
basically in the same position as us.
6-6, 5-7. So I'd say 2 games you got to win. You have to win these games if you want to make playoffs. Like if you lose both of these games, playoffs becomes an increasingly long shot.
Yeah.
So big week for us.
Well, we'll see what we're able to do. Honestly, really looking forward to the heist as well this week. Hoping that there's some insight into like level of preparation and the thought behind some of the choices that were made. So looking forward to that. And also looking forward to Rec League this Thursday and doing what we do as 100 Thieves fans. So
always,
everybody, thanks for listening. Again, apologies for the scuffed stream early on. I don't know what the problem was that was causing everybody to buffer a whole bunch. Luckily, we got it sorted out, but I know the first half of this, or not the first half, but the first few minutes of this will be kind of chopped, and I apologize for that. But thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll do this again soon. As always, we love you, and we miss you already.